This is an algebra video that looks at how to multiply terms. So in our first example, we're going to multiply 7 by y. Now just before we begin this, I want to just point out that this symbol here, I intend for it to mean multiplication. It's not an x, but you can see how easily we might read it as an x. So as we go through algebra, we're going to see this symbol less and less often, and instead to represent multiplication, we're going to see brackets. So this way of writing it also means 7 multiplied by y. If I multiply a number by a letter, I simply run them together for the answer. So in this case, I should write my answer as 7y. That's what I get when I multiply 7 by y. Think about our vocabulary in algebra for a moment. What name can I give to this number that's in front of the letter? This 7 can be called the coefficient of y. And what about y itself? What name can I give to a letter in algebra? This y can be called a variable, and it's important to know this vocabulary as we'll hear it an awful lot in this topic. So let's have a look at a second example. So this time I want to work out what 4 by 5 by z should be. Again, not really loving the multiplication symbols here. They could so easily be mistaken for x's. So I'm much more likely to see this as 4 bracket 5 bracket z with the brackets indicating multiplication. So when I multiply this out, what do I get? So my result in this case is 20z. The 20 is the coefficient and z is the variable. And just before I go on to example 3, you'll notice that I'm doing my z here in a very specific way. And that's because we encounter letters a lot in algebra, obviously. And z is one that we see quite a bit. And I'm doing this little line across the middle of my z so that I won't mix it up with 2 by accident. Okay, this time I have an example where I've got a multiplied by 4. So how should I write my answer for this? Well, even though it's written in the order a times 4 in the question, I should still write the coefficient at the start in my answer. So my answer is 4a. So the coefficient always comes first and the variable always follows it. In example 4, I've got 3a multiplied by 2b. Again, don't forget the brackets just indicate multiplication. In order to work this out, I should start by multiplying my coefficients together. So I'll multiply 3 by 2, which will give me 6. And then I'll just run the variables together at the end. Running coefficients and variables together in this way is another way of showing that they're multiplying together. So the a and the b here are multiplying together because they're being written next to one another. So here's example 5, 7ab by 2c. Pause the video here yourself for a moment and see, can you figure out what the answer for this one should be? Well, just like in the last example, I should take my coefficients, which are 7 and 2, and I should multiply those together, which gives me 14, and then I just run the variables on the end. So my answer is 14abc. Here we have example 6. Again, pause the video here for a moment and see, can you figure out the solution to this yourself? Well, this time I'm multiplying together the coefficients 2 by 3 by 4, and 2 by 3 by 4 is 24. And then my variables are a, b, c. Okay, so example 7. Here I have 2a by 2a. 2 by 2 makes 4. And I can write AA at the end. This looks a bit funny though. Surely there's a better way of writing AA. Remember that AA here means A multiplied by A. Can you think of any slightly shorter way of indicating that I want to multiply A by itself? We tend to write a letter multiplied by itself like AA as A squared instead. You can see how if you had a lot of A's in a chain, it would be much neater and more efficient to use a power to indicate how many of them there were. And here's our last example, example 8. I've got 3a by 2a by abc. Okay, so I'll multiply my coefficients together, which will give me 6. And I could write down abc, but I'm actually going to go directly to using a power. So how do you think the end of this should look? Well, I should write a and I should give it a power of 3 and then be C on the end. This power of 3 just tells me how many A's I'm multiplying together. One last tip when you're dealing with algebra: any term that has a couple of different variables in it, make sure to put those variables in alphabetical order. For example, A, B, C.